You're listening to Thunder Quack Podcast Network.
Hello there, and welcome back to Force Perspectives for the Mandalorian, Chapter 21. Yeah, 21.
Yes.
The Pirate. I am your host, Michael Cohen, and with me, as always, the illustrious Joe Hogan.
Whoop whoop.
I can't believe I missed last week. I can't believe I missed that episode.
You were missed.
Bad Batch, whatever. I mean, it was a good episode last week.
No, it was
right?
solid. Not whatever.
Yeah, and I keep saying, I've said it. Next week will be the first time that I don't get to say it, only by virtue of the fact that Bad Batch is done for the season. But I cannot believe that we got 5 weeks in a row of just phenomenal Star Wars storytelling from both of those shows. Like Bad Batch, the beginning of the season was a little bit hit and miss for me. I know that other people really enjoyed that Crosshairs episode early on in the season, but it really wasn't until the mid-season two-parter that story started to like come together for me, and that was right around the same time that Mandos started airing. And then it's just been like bam, bam, bam for the last 5 weeks of just incredible stuff coming out of both of these shows, just delivering exactly what I want from Star Wars. And so next week is going to be weird, where it's like all we get is Mando. But
honeymoon's over.
Yeah, like what a like an embarrassment of riches for the last 5 weeks. Because it would have been one thing just to get both shows at the same time. That would have been enough to be like, wow, I can't believe we've got Star Wars animated and Star Wars live action content at the same time. But then to turn around and be like, both of them are so good. And last week, to have Ahmed Best return as Keller and Beck to save Grogu, and just like, come on, man. Come on. It was so good. And then the more dragon slaying stories for Mando last week, it's just like I don't know, man. There are people who will complain. There are always people who will complain. There is always going to be discourse. But for me, this season of Mandalorian is, I think, pound for pound, the best season of the show yet. And obviously including Boba Fett into that doesn't really mean much, but because that show was so all over the place. As much as I like it, it's so all over the place in terms of quality. But yeah, like last week's episode, phenomenal. This week, just like, oh, you thought last week was good? Here we go, Pirates. And it was just like from the get-go in this one, man, I was just floored. I was, 12 o'clock at night. I started a little late. I started about 12:15, and it was just like, is this real life? Like literally, like I had to stop and go, like, this is really like a show that I just get to watch. Like this is a Star Wars television show this is just an episode of this show that I just get to watch. And then Carson Teva shows up and is like, I'm going to go to Coruscant and I'm going to talk to Tim Meadows. And it's just like, this is exactly what I want from Star Wars. And I talked about it a couple of weeks ago with Andor, right? Like talking about the Andor parallels and stuff, and comparing things and all of my opinions on Andor. This week's episode couldn't have cemented that more for me, that like Andor is fantastic. It's incredibly well made. It is not Star Wars for me, because this is Star Wars for me. Like even like the political stuff in this is a little bit more of what I want. Like it's like it's kind of almost, there's a point with the Tim Meadows character where it's almost like Parks and Rec a little bit, of like the way that he's sort of like,
yeah.
listen, I'm a requisitions officer, so what are you requesting? And I was just like, that's a line. Like what a beautiful piece of writing. And then to go like, you know who we need for this one? The ladies, man. That's who we need for this one. And bringing in Tim Meadows, who I always like. Tim Meadows is, because he's part of it, you know, there's always the thing of like, what's your favorite, what's the best SNL cast, right? Like, and the it's like what's the best Final Fantasy, and it's usually the one that you grew up with, right? The first Final Fantasy you played is your favorite Final Fantasy game, and the SNL cast that you grew up with as a teenager is your favorite, is what you think is the best SNL cast. And so for me, it's like the Will Ferrell, Chris Kattan, Tim Meadows, I like that group, is Horatio Sands, even sort of, which is a little bit later in that run, but like still part of that group. Even Jimmy Fallon, to a certain degree, less so, but he's got some good moments. That's my like that is that's my SNL cast. And so anytime Tim Meadows shows up in anything, it always makes me happy. Um and he crushes it in this one. Like what a perfect civil servant, like pain in the ass bureaucratic red tape character, where it's just like the introduction to him of like talking to the R2 unit of like, don't put that there, that's my workspace. And it's just like, I like it when we get these weird little mundane moments in Star Wars of like, that's right, there are just regular people in this galaxy too. Not everybody is Luke Skywalker or Han Solo or Princess Leia, right? Like there's also just a guy like going to work in order to like you know, we can't get in the way of industry, you know. And yeah, like it just, I don't know. I loved it. I loved every second of this episode. How did you feel about this episode?
Mike, we got Zeb.
Oh my god.
We got Zeb, and he looks great. It's Steve Bloom doing the voice.
Yeah.
I did not think the first Rebels character we were going to get would be Zeb.
Yeah.
I'm so happy. It's like I know everybody with the cameos is like, oh, cameo, Rambo, so amazing galaxy. Shut up. It's not for you.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Shut
up. Shut up. And yeah, and
we got Zeb.
Did I say it to you? It's like I didn't. Yeah, like Mando is a Rebels sequel. It was a Rebels sequel all along.
Yeah,
we didn't know it, but we should have known it because there's a lot of Mandalorian stuff in Star Wars Rebels, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, no, this is just this Ahsoka is not the Star Wars Rebels sequel. This was always the Star Wars Rebels sequel, and Ahsoka is a part of this. Yeah, getting Gara Zeb Orrelios in live action was not on my list. It was not on my list because I don't know that I dared to dream that big, you know. And I should have listened to Tom Hardy, and I didn't even a little bit bigger.
I didn't think we were gonna get him in Ahsoka.
Yeah, no, and to be honest, like the character shows up, and I was like, oh my god, a Lasat in live action.
I had the exact same thought until he said like 2 or 3 lines. I was like, no way.
Yeah, and then he spoke, and I was like, they couldn't make him sound a little bit different from Zeb. And then at the end of the episode, I'm like, no, that's Zeb. That was Zeb. No, that was Steve Bloom. That was Zeb. Like that's who that is. And I like went back and was like, I can't believe it. And then like people posting screenshots and stuff today, the Karen attention is off the charts because he looks every bit as good as he would in a feature.
He looks so good because I think the first time we saw like a live action quote unquote was in Jedi,
in Fallen
not
Order.
Survivor. Yes, Fallen Order. I couldn't think of the name of it. Yeah, because like Cal's master is a Lasat.
Jaro Tapal. Yeah, he but like, yes, live action, but
Quote unquote
also
live action.
still
Yeah,
animated, right?
sure.
Like it's bridging that gap.
Yeah,
But which I mean, obviously, this is a CG character we're talking about, but um,
certainly less stylized than
yeah,
Rebels.
yeah, I just, yeah, I mean, incredible. I
So
can't believe
good.
we got it. I can't. I'm
It's
still
so
in
good.
disbelief
So cool. I
that
don't
we got
care.
it, and it's such a like throwaway thing, but at the same time, it's like, okay, so you know, Carson and Zeb, they hang out. They're both what is it, Adelphi Rangers. Um,
Right. Yeah.
so
Like
here,
Trapper Wolf was there.
yeah,
I think Deborah Chow was there too, right?
yeah, and I Rick Famuyiwa's character Jib Dodger is also there.
Oh,
So
cool. I didn't notice him.
I yeah. Yeah, he's credited at the end at least. So it's like it's one of those scenes of like go back and watch it again. Like
Yeah.
you got to go back
Yeah.
and like freeze frame and look around and go okay, cool.
Well, when you see
Um
Dave's hat, you can't miss it,
yeah,
right? It's like, okay.
obviously. Yeah. And Y Wings, we got to see Y Wings, New
Yeah, that
Republic
was
Y
neat.
Wings, which is cool. Um yeah, man. I
So let me ask you something because
yeah,
I by the end of uh Captain Teva's like not last scene, not the scene where he finds the
yeah.
shuttle.
The post credit
Um
scene sort of thing. Yeah.
right. Not that one, but like by the from the beginning that we saw him to the point where he drops off the hologram to Din and then
Yeah.
leaves. It all felt very Cara Dune. All of those things felt like if Cara Dune was still in the show, she'd
Yeah.
be the one doing these things
Yeah.
right now.
Um so listen, I've talked about this already, right? The reason why Book of Boba Fett ended up in this weird like mishmash of like okay, and then we're gonna stuff two Mando episodes in the middle of this is because I firmly believe that those two episodes were gonna take place somewhere within Rangers of the New Republic.
Okay.
Uh, I also think that like this storyline, I also think that the because of the fact that this storyline, like these scenes with Carson Teva, I on Coruscant, they involve Elia Kane, right? Elia Kane. Is it
Right.
Elia or Elia? I think it's Elia, right?
Elia.
It's
I think it's
Elia.
Elia.
Elia Kane. Yeah, I think you're right.
Now I'm not sure. Who knows?
I think you're right. I think you're right. I I think all like and all of the stuff with Pershing, I think all of that was meant to be Rangers of the New Republic story.
Okay.
And that there would be more, right? And I'm gonna break everybody's heart right now. We got this little bit of Zeb. I think he was supposed to be a character because like they're the Adelphi
Man.
Rangers. I
Yeah.
think he was supposed to be a lead character in Rangers of the New Republic. I don't think it's the last we're going to see of Zeb, right? Because I don't think this
Mm.
is the last that we're going to see of the Rangers. I think that the Rangers are the beginning of the Resistance. I think that Carson is going to go to Leia and say this because obviously, come on. Carson is on the trail of the First Order.
Yeah.
There
Every
is
time we see him, yeah.
no doubt in my mind. He knows that something is up. His gut is telling him there's more happening here. His gut is the Force, obviously, right? It's Star Wars. So anytime a character says, I don't know, this feels weird, that's the Force. The Force is telling him there's something else going on here. That's what Rangers of the New Republic was going to be about. And I don't think it was going to necessarily be him. I think he was going to be a character in it. Obviously, it was going to be starring Cara Dune, right? But um but I think like this was going to be the story is that like while this stuff is happening with Mando and while this stuff is happening with Ahsoka, over here we've got the Rangers and you've got like these characters and they're tracking down like Gideon has been like this was it wasn't an attack, this was an extraction sort of thing, right? It's like so obviously somebody rescued Gideon. It's the First Order, right? That's where
With
we're at right
with
now, and I don't
with
even think that we.
Beskar?
It's a it was. So here's the thing. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that in like retconned, because we've never I think there's like a comic or something that like implies that Phasma's armor is made of the uh
The Naboo,
the Naboo,
the
yeah,
new
like
Naboo
Padme's
starfighter.
Naboo
Yeah.
Naboo ship or whatever, her royal starship. um but I wouldn't be surprised if they retcon that and say that Phasma's armor, because it deflects blaster bolts, right? So like they'll go
She's
back and they'll say
young
that it
though,
was
right
Beskar.
now.
I don't think that it's Phasma. Because I don't think that we'll see First Order stormtroopers in the way
Okay.
that we saw them in The Force Awakens. I think that we're gonna, in the way that we're seeing the TK units in Bad Batch, I think we're gonna
Okay.
see we're
Gotcha.
gonna see something that bridges the gap between the um stormtroopers, like old TK
Yeah.
classic stormtroopers, and the First Order stormtroopers.
That's
I
actually
think
pretty neat. I would like
I
that.
I think that among them will be some Mandalorian super commandos, that like in the same way that we saw them in Star Wars Rebels. I think that we've
Mm.
got a similar situation
Well,
where
what's his
either
name?
that or like, but because um that Gideon like looted Mandalore, right? That like when like
Right.
he took the dark saber, so he's got Beskar as well. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that there are Beskar dark troopers, like
Is
that
Gar
there's, or like
Saxon dead?
a I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the last time that we saw him, he was still leading the Imperial Super Commandos.
And Fen Rao is still alive, right? I don't remember
Fen
him
Rao
dying
was
either.
still alive at the end of Star Wars Rebels, yeah.
Okay.
Because
I wonder if those
and
guys are gonna
because
show
Fen
up.
Rao was with Bo Katan
Right.
when
Okay.
Sabine gives Bo Katan the dark saber. Because Bo Katan, like Sabine gives Bo Katan the dark saber, and then we don't really check in with the Mandalorians after that. That's like sort of the end of that story, and then we go into the end of we go into season 4, because that's a lot of season 3 stuff, right?
Mm.
It's so funny because I've watched season 1 and 2 quite a bit. Like I think I've watched them. It's one of those things of like what you like kind of like watch them again in the lead up to the new season. So like season 4 is the one that I've seen the least. I've actually seen most season 4 episodes only twice. Which like that's, most people have only seen these shows once. But like I don't know season 3 and 4 as well as I know season 1 and 2. I know
Right.
season 1 backwards and
Uh.
forwards, but
So
but
so Gar
yeah, it's
Gar
tough.
Saxon is dead.
Is he dead?
uh.
Okay.
He and Sabine had a lightsaber duel. He had the dark saber. She basically got it away from him and was going to spare him, and then Ursa Wren shot him and killed him because he was like she let him go. Sabine let Gar Saxon go, and he was going to betray her when she turned her back, and
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
Ursa Wren just shot him. So
Okay.
apparently he's dead. So
But Fen
bummer.
Rao is
I was
still
like,
alive,
ooh,
right?
that'd be a cool one. I'd like to see the live action
Yeah.
like mauled Beskar come back. But yeah, you're right. He was also the Imperial Super Commando, the
Yeah.
Mandalorian Super Commando. Bummer. That would have been cool. Should have been Josh
Yeah.
Brolin.
So yeah, I think that there are Mandalorians that are loyal to Gideon. I think that that's the
Okay.
implication here. But that it's going to be confusing because it's like, okay, Beskar, why is there Beskar? Like, did the Mandalorians the ones who broke out
Well,
Gideon?
there's kind of two connections already, right? Because the first one is he had the Darksaber somehow when we first met him.
Yeah.
So he's dealt with Mandalorians before. Maybe he was the leader of whatever Mandalorians broke him out just now because it got the Darksaber from one of them, and now they're all following him. And then the other one is, you're right, the what was his name? The client, right?
Yeah.
He had Beskar.
Yeah.
So, and he was following Moff Gideon. So there was already Beskar kind of circulating in like Imperial possession. Because you're right, they sacked Mandalore.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so the other possibility is that the First Order hired the Night Owls to break Gideon out, because they have his ship,
Oh,
right? So
cool.
it that is something that could make sense where they're like where um and I'm going until we're proven otherwise, I am going to keep referring to it as the First Order because I think that's what's going on, right?
Mm,
But yeah, that they're the ones pulling the strings at the end of the day, and that the goal is to get Gideon back for some reason because Gideon has some knowledge that nobody else has. I don't know. There's something that I mean, like, let's be real. It's Giancarlo Esposito, so we're not going to get rid of him. He's going to be around. Um, when you have one of the best bad guy actors in the biz, you're just gonna keep breaking him out and bringing him back and making him the bad guy over and over and over again. Why waste it? So yeah, I think there's a possibility that we could see that the Night Owls are with Gideon, and that would be like a real blow to Bo Katan, and I think would further cement her in her allegiance to the Children of the Watch, right?
hmm.
Um, yeah. So
I
I think that's what's going on there.
I have a quick question about
Yeah.
that. The scene with the Beskar in the shuttle. What exactly was the Beskar residue? Because like that final shot, I didn't know what I was looking at.
Like the fragment, it's like it was like a chunk of Beskar, like it was like something broke off of
Okay.
something. Yeah, there was like it wasn't like a big piece of Beskar, but it was like Beskar was a part of it, sort of thing. I
Okay.
don't know. It's confusing, but
So the little probe
yeah,
thing scanned it and I guess found trace amounts
yeah,
of debris or whatever. Okay.
yeah. Which let's call that out for a second. How rad
Yeah.
was it when that little
Yeah.
bit popped out of the
Yep.
Astro and yeah, and flew over that? I was just like, man, Star Wars is so cool. It's just it's um it's those little things that bring me so much joy in watching these shows that I feel like a lot of people just take for granted because that's such like a and I know like people say this in a negative connotation all the time, but it's such an action figure moment of
Yeah.
like check
Yeah.
out this little accessory that
Yep.
this R2 unit has where and it's like so R2D2 could have done that as well. We just never saw him do it because we've seen that little camera pop up. We see it in Empire, right? Um we just didn't realize that he can fully eject it and then control it remotely in 0G.
Hmm.
Which is just like so cool. Just fantastic.
And
Um
speaking of accessories, can we appreciate for a moment that when you call a meeting in Mandalorian culture, you have to be holding the talking hammer to speak?
yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful? I love that.
It's
It's so
fantastic.
silly. It's so silly, but it's like, okay, awesome.
It's just another simple thing where it's like we don't need to explain it. We don't need to it doesn't stop anything. It's just like it's just a piece of business for the actors to do that just like adds a little bit more depth and flavor to Mandalorian culture where it's like no, like she's like their spiritual leader, right? She's not she be because of the fact that they don't currently have a Mandalore, right? Like they don't have a Mandalore the Great or a Mandalore the what's the one what is he called in it's a shame that that Kyle's not here. Mandalore the Ultimate or something like that. I can't remember what
Mhm.
he's called in KOTOR, but they call him Mandalore the Great in Mandalorian. Um so that like they don't have a leader right now. They don't have
But
a king or a queen or whatever, a
th-
duchess or whatever.
That's actually my question,
Yeah,
because now that Din is no longer an apostate,
yeah,
he has the dark saber. Why isn't he the leader?
because he just hasn't. He's just not. He right. Like I think that's what it comes down to is that he just isn't. Um, if he pulled out the dark saber and said, "Follow me because I have the dark saber," they would have to listen.
Mm,
But he doesn't see himself as that person.
no.
Um, and I think the interesting thing here is that as we see Bo Katan take her place in this hierarchy, it becomes more and more apparent that like I don't think Din is that guy. Like I don't think that
Yeah.
Din is meant to be the King Arthur figure, which like I think early on we were kind of like maybe he's supposed to be King Arthur. When I talked to Marie Claire from What the Force about this, she's always like, I think he's more Percival, and I'm like, okay, I don't really know what that means. Like I know that Percival is one of the other knights. She's like, he's either Percival or Lancelot. It's kind of unclear at the moment, right? Like we don't have enough information, but he could be either one of those. The Percival thing is because of the spear, I think, because I think that's what like Percival uses a spear. But
Mm,
um, I don't know enough about Arthurian legend to know like to be able to sort of put these things together like that. And I don't even like know where to start with
well,
it, sort of thing. But
Star Wars also takes liberties when it
oh, for sure,
adapts these things anyway. So it's
yeah.
not like Din has to fit into that. Like it has to be Lancelot. It has to be Percival.
Yeah,
But same
but
kind of thing. Supporting role for our King Arthur, who is clearly now turning into Bo Katan, who is very
I think so.
comfortably kind
Yeah,
of and naturally um, just kind of rising to the occasion and just being a natural leader.
yeah, and I think like that's what it comes down to is that like the end of this episode with the armor being like you walk in both worlds. You're like you understand like now you understand the value of our traditions, but you are also a night owl. You are also this other thing, and I think that's why her armor wasn't damaged in the way that Din's armor was damaged in season 1. So what like one of the things that you have to do is like you have to sort of run everything back to season 1, and there have been a lot of complaints lately that like Din isn't like his arc isn't going anywhere, and it's like, well, yeah, he finished his arc, and like he's not done, he's not a complete character, and that's not how heroes journeys work. That's not how heroines journeys work. It's not how any of it works, right? It's a cycle. It's a circle for a reason, and you like the by the time that you finish, you start a new one, right? But it doesn't it's not continuous in the sense that you are always in a hero's journey.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily have to be the case. There are pauses between these journeys. Um, there has to be a reward for the lesson learned, right? And that's like Din went off. He had his hero's journey. He learned that Grogu, like he and Grogu both learned that they are each other's family. They came back together, and now they get to live that for a little while. They get to be Din and Grogu, right? Without like, oh, we have to like be doing now. Grogu is still mid hero's journey for himself, and I think like last week's episode was a pretty major step forward in that hero's journey with like sort of unlocking those memories of Kelleran and all of that stuff. So we'll see how that progresses over the course of the season. But there's like Din is static right now for a reason, and it is because we still have Grogu. He's in the middle of his journey, and now we've got Bo Katan coming in, and Bo Katan is at the beginning of her hero's journey. So she is literally last week in her egg episode, right? Like with the Mudhorn, and she loses the pauldron. She's fighting an animal, a creature. She loses the pauldron, and then the armorer makes her a new one, right? But she doesn't get a completely new set of armor because Din the armor for Din represents his new the new persona that he takes on, right? He was a bounty hunter before that, and then people complain of like the N1 is a terrible ship for him because it's not a bounty hunter ship, and it's like, I don't know if you guys have been watching the same show as me, but Din Djarin hasn't been a bounty hunter since the 3rd episode of season 1. He, the second that he broke the code, he's no longer a bounty hunter, you guys. He's not in the guild. That's not his life. He is not bringing them in warm or bringing them in cold. He is Grogu's protector, right? That was his role. And then he's completed that journey and all that stuff. But symbolically for Bo, she doesn't get a whole new set of armor. She just gets the pauldron to represent, like, now you are of both clans. You're a night owl on one side, on one shoulder, and you are potentially the Mandalore on the other side, because you've chosen the mythosaur as your signet. So
Did you notice the detail on that mythosaur signet?
I mean, like, I looked at it and think that it's fantastic, but what detail are you talking about?
The eyes on the mythosaur are night owl eyes.
Oh, I didn't put that together. That's
Isn't
interesting.
that sick?
Yeah,
It's
I
so
clocked that
good.
it was like stylized. It's not Boba's mythosaur, right? Which, like, that's obviously what we consider like the classic mythosaur symbol, because it's the first time that we see it is on
Right.
Boba's pauldron. That's interesting.
Actually, wait, hold on. I might have a JPEG right now that I can send you so you can see it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do, because I saw it on Reddit and I was like, oh, I definitely didn't notice it, but I
That's
appreciate
awesome.
it. I just sent it to you.
Yeah, so like it's one of those things. That's awesome.
Isn't it sick?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The way that it, like, yeah, it comes down in that. Oh man, that's so perfect. Um, yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Isn't that
This show
cool?
is so good. The show is so good, you guys. And there are people out there that want to tell you that it's not good because they're mad that it's not doing what they wanted it to do. And because of that, they're ignoring what it is doing. And look, like, season 2 was a little bit shaky because season 2 spent a lot of its time establishing the wider galaxy that this story is taking place in. And it sort of went on these detours of like, okay, now we're gonna go meet Ahsoka, and now we're gonna bring back Boba Fett, and now we're gonna do this and do that, and blah blah blah, and introduce Cobb Vanth, and like the whole season was about introducing other characters. I, but then this season has come back, and like, I just find that it's tight, it's on point, it's focused. I know that there's a bunch of people who are like, there's no plot this season. I don't know what show they're watching, because I'm watching this show and I'm like, there's a hell of a lot of plot. This week in particular, this whole aspect of like, Navarro is now the new Mandalore,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's a major turning point in this story of like, you no longer have to be underground. You no longer have to hide. You are now like nobility
Yeah.
on Navarro. You're now the protectors of this world, and to me, it's like, that's just, it's not where I thought that any of this was going, but at the same time, it's like this is exactly where it needed to go. Like, it makes so much sense. It's so perfect, I think. And Din's whole speech, the beginning of the episode, telling them of like, like, we don't have to hide. We can be what we were, right? And like, the end of the episode when Greef is like, you guys are heroes now, and then we like pan over all of the Mandalorians, and it's like, awesome, right? And it's almost, these actions, once again, Grogu is the elixir, right? That's the point of a hero's journey, is that the hero goes out, they go through trials, they have a death and a rebirth, they learn something, and they gain abilities that they didn't have before, or knowledge that they didn't have before. And the purpose of that journey is to come back to the village with the elixir, to return with the elixir, and spread that knowledge, that power, whatever, to the people, right? To the community. Like, you return to the community and you make the community better for having gone out on the adventure. This is not something we get to see in Star Wars very often, because the story usually just kind of ends, right? Like, it's I in the original trilogy, we kind of I we finished the trilogy and that's it. Like Luke learns to be a Jedi, and then he comes back, and presumably the New Republic flourishes and everything's great until they want to tell more stories, and then they tell us that everything's horrible. But which I'm fine with. I'm okay with it. But because we're getting some really cool stories as a result. Um but Star Wars often, like it doesn't get to this point of like what happens after the hero returns with the elixir. Din went out into the galaxy. He found Grogu. He learned about, being a father and community and friendship, and like, because that's really like, it's one of the wildest things about this show is like that's really what a lot of this is about, is that Din Djarin went out into the galaxy as this lone gunman, bounty hunter, and discovered that actually it's better to have friends than it is to go it alone. So literally, like, the power of friendship is the point of the Mandalorian so far. And he's now come back to, and Grogu represents that, obviously, right? Like, as this familial bond. Grogu is also a healing force himself, both like literally and figuratively. Um, Everywhere he goes, everything Grogu touches eventually is healed, right? Like his intention is
Except for the
always,
little eggs he ate.
except for the eggs that
poor,
he ate.
poor lizard
But
lady.
I mean, like, she does, the frog lady does end up, but they have their babies.
Well,
But
some of them.
a couple, yeah. I yeah. There is still an aspect of that episode. That could have been fixed had at the end he just like barfed them all back up
That
into
would
the
have been
jar.
hilarious.
Just like he learned his lesson of like, oh, these are special, and then just like puked them all back up. It's like, where are you putting those, dude? But anyways, um yeah, like it started with Navarro, it started with Greef Karga. He literally, like, Greef was a bad guy, and then he gets attacked by the pterodactyls, right? And poisoned, and Grogu heals him. And when Grogu heals him, suddenly he has a change of heart. Suddenly he's a new man, right? Um, which is mirrored the same week in Rise of Skywalker, when I when Rey heals Kylo Ren, she heals Ben Solo. That's like physically she heals the wound. She stabs him. Kylo Ren dies. She heals him. Ben Solo returns, right? Like, that's literally what happens. The Force is not just about the physical, it's also about the spiritual. And so when you do that, when you heal the physical, you are also healing the spiritual. I believe that that's part of the message with these healing abilities. um and so that, like, then also transfers into Navarro as a planet. You know I It happened with Boba as well, right? Like, Boba is a part of this whole thing, and is, like, by virtue of, Grogu is connected to Din, and Din is connected to Boba, and that heals Boba, and all of a sudden Boba is no longer, this out for blood bounty hunter with, his own set of rules and morals. He's like, no, we're gonna fix Tatooine. Like, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make this a better place. And it's like, he could have just gone and been like, I'm just gonna be another crime lord. I'm gonna do exactly what Jabba did. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna rule with fear. I'm gonna rule with respect, right? Like, and over the course of that, he's just like, every opportunity that he has to be merciful, he is, right? And sometimes it comes back to bite him, but more often than not, it ends up paying for, he reaps the rewards of that in the end, by the end of that season. So yeah, like, everywhere they go, the world is made better for it, right? All of the Cara Dune, the real world meta Cara Dune stuff aside, that was another character of like she was on her own, detached, and like that connection turned her into a hero, and she rejoined the New Republic, and all that stuff. So, and I believe that would have continued had that character continued. So, um, it's now happening to the Covert. The Covert is no longer the broken uh, cult that it was, and it is becoming a community. And the Armorer allowing, not just allowing, but telling Bo-Katan, remove your helmet, right? Like that. I wasn't sure where that was going, and then you
Yeah,
see
me
it, and
neither.
it's like, okay, like maybe this isn't as, none of it is as cut and dry as it appears on the surface, right? Like I but this is also one of those things about cult leaders, is that it's like, well, the tempo has changed and I need to adapt. And if that means that Bo-Katan takes off her helmet so that she can go get others to join the cult, then that's what it's going to be. There is still manipulation happening there for sure,
Mm.
but I do think that the armor is altruistic from her point of view. I think that like she truly believes that Mandalorian culture is worth preserving. I mean, like, it is, but her version of Mandalorian culture is worth preserving, and um, she's attempting to do that with the tools that she has at her disposal, right? So, is it? I don't know if it's a seed change of like, I thought for a second when like Bo walks up to Din and sort of gives him a look, and then Din looks over at Paz and Paz looks back at him, and they nod at each other. I thought they were going to take their helmets off.
Oh
Like I
wow.
I was like, are we about to like, is everything about to change? I also thought that the armor,
Yeah.
originally I thought that she was going to take her helmet off,
I
and
I
that,
thought the shot when they were like back outside and everyone was looking, I
yeah,
thought both of them were already gonna have their helmets off.
yeah.
I was a
But
little bummed.
it's, yeah, I don't think we're there yet, but I think that this is foreshadowing. I think that's what
Yeah.
it's meant to be. It's a little bit murky at the moment, but I do think that that's where we're headed. Is that like the traditions that they've had have sustained them, but now they have an opportunity to move in a new direction, and maybe some of the traditions can fall away, right? Um, we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. But I mean, listen, the armor is going to be unmasked one way or another by the end of this season. That's my prediction.
Hmm.
I think that there will be a fight. Um, I I think I think that she'll overstep, and that that there will be some sort of a conflict, and in that conflict, either with Din or I think more likely now with Bo-Katan, that the helmet will get, the armorer's helmet will get smashed. Um,
Hmm.
and I think back to the imagery of her smashing the stormtrooper helmets with her tools in season one, in that awesome scene. And I think that we could see a scene now that we know the significance of the hammer, and it's like whoever's holding the hammer gets to speak, sort of thing. I think we
Hmm.
might see a fight between Bo and the armorer, where that hammer ends up in Bo Katan's hands, and she just knocks that helmet off of the armor's head. But I think it'll be in a way of like the helmet will be like destroyed. Like it won't just be knocked off or
Hmm.
removed. It'll be like like symbolically it will destroy the station that the armorer has, where it's like, nope, now we listen to Bo-Katan. Now like she's our leader now. The armorer no longer has a say. Because now she's an apostate, sort of thing. So And then I think it'll be like go to Mandalore, like go and bathe in the waters, right? Like we've determined that it's safe. Anybody can go that path now. So yeah, I think that they will do that. I wouldn't be surprised if the fight ends up being in front of the mythosaur in the mines, right?
Oh, cool.
Like the armorer is like, if the mythosaur is alive, like if it does exist, like if it's real, then I'm gonna go and I'm gonna ride the mythosaur and unite Mandalore. But I don't know. But there's also the aspect of it that she's like just basically telling Bo-Katan to do that. So I don't know. It's hard to get a read because she is at once saying things that sound good, but on the other hand, until she takes that helmet off, I don't trust her.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like it's just, yeah, I don't trust her. The
If we get
helmet
a
has the
fight,
little horns. Like it
if
just
we get a fight between those two in the mines on Mandalore, you're gonna get a very expensive collect call from Europe from me. I'm gonna say,
I,
all right, who do you know that's feeding you these things, Mike? You've been a little too accurate
yeah.
with some of your predictions.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like it's what it comes down to is just sort of like, and this is where it's hard with Mandalorian because Jon Favreau uses a lot of mythic archetypes and tropes, but he is not adherent to them. So, like, I'll use Willow as an example. John Kasdan, in the first few episodes, it was like, wait, what's going on here? Is this because you remember, like, I watched that stuff early, like, way early,
Mm.
like the beginning of November before everybody else got to see it. And I watched those first 4 episodes and was like, this is like this is like too much. Like there are too many things that are lining up here. I think I'm crazy. And I had to like stop. Like I stopped because I was like, I need to be able to discuss this with people. And I'm like, I am killing myself not being able to talk to people about this show. So I'm gonna stop and wait for everybody else to get to watch the show. And then Marie Claire and Missy started doing their breakdowns, their mythic breakdowns, in like at the beginning of the season. And in the first episode, Marie Claire is like, oh, okay, so this means this, and this means this, which means we're gonna go here, here, and here. And I was like, yeah, in the 4th episode, all of that stuff happens with Graydon. Like, she called it from the first episode. And the reason why she was able to do that is because John Kasdan was very clearly tapping into mythic archetypes and fairy tale storytelling. So it was very easy for the two of them, for Marie Claire and Missy, who are experts on this stuff, to look at it and go, if that's what this character is, which it was, and if that's what this character is, which she was, and this is this one and he's this one, it's like, okay, yeah, you guys are nailing all of this, then the logical through point is that this is this and this is this, and he's a dark prince and she's a hidden goddess and blah blah blah. And it was like, I it was so hard after they talked, like out that first episode of Following Willow, the What the Force podcast Following Willow came out, for me not to like go back to Marie Claire and be like, you are 100%, because they were like, I don't know, I think we're crazy, like if we're crazy. And then the second episode they're like, it's I don't know, like, and I think like that's because we're used to Star Wars taking this stuff and pulling it apart piecemeal and like using a little bit of this archetype here and using a little bit of this trope here. And George was really good at it,
Mm.
right? Really, really good at it. um and he had guidance from Joseph Campbell when it came to Empire and Jedi. And Lawrence Kasdan was really good at it. Lawrence Kasdan is actually like one of the best, because it's not just Star Wars, it's also Indiana Jones, it's everything that he's written. You're like, okay, you get it. You understand how these archetypes and these tropes work. And you know when to use them and when to subvert them and all of that sort of thing. So, and obviously he passed that on to his son. Not passed it on like, oh, it's a magical thing. It's like, no, he, like, his son apprenticed under him basically, right?
Mm.
He taught both of his sons, because I Jake Kasdan is an incredible producer and storyteller as well. Like the two of them make incredible stuff. So I it's obvious that the apples did not fall far from the tree and soaked up as much knowledge as they could. But a lot of the stuff that I key into, that's what I'm trying to do, right? It's easier on Bad Batch because I think that Jennifer Corbett is also very good at using these archetypes and like playing out these storylines, which is why I'm pretty confident about some of the stuff from the season finale and what's going to happen in season 3 when we get season 3 confirmed. But come on, let's be real. They've already made it. It's already like half done, I guarantee it. But yeah, like when the archetypes and the tropes are tight, you can call where the story's going to go. You can predict where it's going to go. Doesn't This is one of those things. This is one of my pet peeves with the way that people talk about movies and TV, is that everybody thinks because of M. Night Shyamalan and J.J. Abrams that a twist is good storytelling. The best twists are the ones that you're sitting in the movie and like 5 minutes before the lead character gets there, or whoever's going to figure out the twist, 5 minutes before it happens, you figure it out. Because that means that it's organic. It's part of the story, right? And you've been given all of the information that you need in order to get to that point. Now, there are great storytellers who subvert that. Rian Johnson is one of those, and Glass Onion is a really great example of that. And halfway through that movie, you're like, oh, this is a different movie. Like, this is actually, it's not what I thought it was. But here's the thing about that. He tells you that 15 minutes into the movie. So, like, you go back and you watch Glass Onion, it's like, but also it's in the title of the movie. It's a glass onion. Everything is clear. You can see the center of the onion. You can see right through it. It's a glass onion. That's the point. That's the analogy of the glass onion. It's needlessly complex and ridiculous. Anyways, that's like a whole other thing. People are like, this movie it's a bad twist. And it's like, no, that's a good twist. It's a very good twist. You're just too dumb to figure it out. His movies are just too intellectual. The anti-intellectualism is on the rise right now. Like, it's a real thing
that's fair.
in American politics, and so people are like, I have to think. It's like Elijah Wood in Back to the Future too. It's like, you got to use your hands. It's a baby's toy. People have this thing of like, I have to use my brain to watch this movie. It's like, yeah, you actually do need to do some of the work. It's a film and television should be a conversation with the audience. It shouldn't be a one-sided thing. It shouldn't be, nothing should be explained, but everything should make sense, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Like, good storytelling, that's exactly how it should work, is that it's like, I'm not going to beat you over the head with this with a very obvious etc whatever, but you should be able to figure this out, right? If you're paying attention to the right things. I don't think that a lot of people pay attention to the right things, because I just don't think that media literacy is where it should be. And those of us who have it, it's because we went out of our way to learn this stuff. And I think one of the main reasons why Star Wars gets misinterpreted so much is because there is a lack of media literacy and people don't know how to engage with these types of stories. But on the flip side of that, I would not be as media literate as I am if not for Star Wars, because Star Wars was the first thing. Gargoyles was really the first thing that I watched that taught me, like, there's something going on here that's not just the text. There is a thing underneath the text. And then later on in life, I would learn that that's called subtext. In, studying Shakespeare, you learn about subtext. But Star Wars was the first thing. Star Wars is like media literacy for babies, right? Where it's like, the good guys wear white, the bad guys wear black, red lightsabers are bad guys, blue lightsabers are good guys, right? Like it is, so much of it is surface, right? But then you get to Return of the Jedi and you're like, why is Luke wearing all black? Why is his lightsaber green? Right? And that's George challenging the audience, the kids in the audience, the 8 to 13-year-olds that story is intended for, where it's like in the first movie it's really clear who the good guy and the bad guy is, right? And then the second movie we're still pretty clear who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, except we meet this Lando guy and we're like, he's a good guy, right? It's like, well, no, he's actually kind of a bad guy, but he is a good guy by the end. He is actually, he does have a heart of gold, just like Han. So he is a good guy. And then with Vader, it's like, I am your father. And it's like, so wait, so you were Anakin Skywalker. What does that mean? And then you get to Return of the Jedi, and it's like everything's murky, and there's a lot of shades of gray, and we got to work this out. And it's to teach kids that actually it's not as simple as good and evil, right? And like it's like the text is the subtext in Star Wars, and when it's at its best, that's what it does, right? And it's like the scenes in The Last Jedi that everybody hates with Rose, where she's like, I just wish I could put my fist through this whole stupid, like, beautiful town or whatever, right? Like, I she comes right out and says exactly what the movie is about, and yet people still walk away from that movie not understanding what that movie is about. It's one of those things. It drives me a little bit nuts. But Jon Favreau, come all the way back to that, he uses this stuff as shorthand, but there are times when he's I don't think that Jon Favreau has done as much studying of Joseph Campbell and these archetypes. Yeah, this is the thing. I think that Jon Favreau has studied the stuff that Joseph Campbell wrote. I don't think that Jon Favreau has studied the stuff that Joseph Campbell studied. Whereas George Lucas was a student of Joseph Campbell and therefore went out and read the other stuff. He did the other homework, right? And so he comes back, and when he does a hero's journey, he's not just looking at what Joseph Campbell had to say about it. He's looking at the things that informed Joseph Campbell's opinion on the hero's journey, because Joseph Campbell did not create the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a byproduct of storytelling. It happens because you tell a story, not the other way around, right? And I think that Jon Favreau often is telling a hero's journey to tell a hero's journey. And so there's a lot of places where he like jams it in, right? And there's a lot of places where he goes like, oh, and now this is this part. Oh, and now we have to go do this. And now we're going to use this fairy tale over here. And so it becomes very erratic, where you're like, wait, are we okay? So you set up that fairy tale trope over here, and then you didn't pay it off. You actually went in a different direction and paid off a different fairy tale trope over here. Okay. But then you picked it up in the next season, but then you dropped it. And it's like, so I'm not as confident predicting Mando as I am Bad Batch, or even like when we have conversations about Willow and what's going to happen in season 2 when we eventually get season 2 of that. I'm very confident in knowing certain things that are going to happen, and I'm in incredible agreement with Marie Claire, and if you go back and listen to the episode that I did with Ty, we have a lot of ideas in that one where it's like I'm I'm very confident in the assertions that I've made in that, because I John Kasdan has been so clear in what he's doing with those characters, and where their journeys are going to head in the next story. So next part of that story, I should say. All of that said, I there are things that I hope for with Mando by the end of this season. I don't know if we'll get it by the end of the season or if it'll be next season. There are things that I hope for, but I don't know that they're predictions as much as other things that I've predicted in the past. Just because of the fact of like, I don't know, every once in a while he throws us a curveball. It just goes a totally different way, you know. I so I don't know. We'll see. It's like Grogu leaving was all totally predictable at the end of season 2. Grogu immediately coming back in the midst of Book of Boba Fett, I could not have seen coming. And I have my own theories on why that happens in the way that it happens, which might be part of the dissonance, but regardless, it is dissonant. It is like, wait a second, what? Okay, so Grogu's back now, and then we just continue on with the story. So all of that said, we'll see where it goes. I don't know. Was there anything else in this episode that you wanted to talk about? I mean, like, we
Yeah.
haven't even talked about the amazing dog fights.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there was a neat spaceship fight, and it was
Yeah,
great. It was a lot of fun.
so good.
It was just fun. It was fun Star Wars.
Yeah,
I,
it was.
I want that N1 in every form of every
Oh my
toy.
god. There's a Lego Microfighter coming out in
Uh,
August,
that's it.
August 1st.
That's the one.
So yeah, it's
I want those. What are these? The Action Fleet, like
yeah,
not Action Fleet toys now. I want that.
Micro Galaxy something or other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, what is it? They're called Star Wars Micro Galaxy Squadron. That's what they're called. Yeah, I guarantee it. I guarantee it's coming in the next wave. The Razor
Cool.
Crest is one of them already, right? So
Yeah.
I'll bet you anything by the end of this year we get that.
Cool. Hope so.
Oh
Well,
my goodness, is there a oh my goodness.
what?
There's another wave coming out. I haven't seen this yet. This is on StarWars.com. There I Black Leader Poe Dameron's T-70 from uh, The Force Awakens is coming
Cool.
out. Along with the V-Wing, General Grievous's Starfighter,
Oh, okay.
Anakin's Jedi Starfighter. I have Obi-Wan's, but Anakin's is coming out. His
Is that
brand new
the is that Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith?
Technically, it's Clone Wars.
Oh, cool. With the Sender R2
Yeah,
unit.
yeah.
Nice.
And
That's cool.
I'm trying to remember the Obi-Wan one that they put out is also Clone Wars.
Okay.
Clone Wars era, because it's the center one as well. And then Plo Koon's Jedi Starfighter as well.
All right. A lot of Jedi Starfighter. You're getting a lot of
A lot, because
lot of
also
repaints.
Ayla Secura's Jedi Interceptor is also coming in this wave.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's the rare chase figure, one of
Okay.
15,000 rare. The Plo Koon one is also a chase figure. It's weird how they're doing that. And then a First Order TIE Fighter, in case anybody cares, and Anakin's Interceptor as well. So two Anakin Jedi Starfighters in the same wave.
Perfect. We need
and
it.
Obi-Wan's Jedi Interceptor, all in the same wave.
So a lot of repaints like in this wave.
And the Munilist Republic gunship.
No,
Yeah,
you're lying to me. Send me
Nope.
this right now.
Not
I
at
need
all.
it. I need it. I
I'm
need it
I'm
yesterday.
just gonna send you the image.
Can I
here.
tell you that I've been fawning over the Republic gunship one for like
Yeah.
weeks, and Carl sent it to me, and they have Fordo.
I wanted you to see it for yourself.
Die.
I didn't want to say it out loud.
I am going to die. When is this coming out? Where is this going to be available?
I think maybe it's spring 2023, so they should be hitting shelves soon.
Even says Mutilus 10. Oh my god. Yeah. Oh my god. Where's Fordo in the Bad Batch? Come on. Like, I know I'm whiny about Delta Squad. Give me one Fordo, please. Oh my god.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my god. Oh my god, I need
that
it.
is the best deco for any of the gunships, and there's been a lot of really cool ones. But the Munilist deco is like, that's the best one.
Oh god. Oh my god, I need it. I need it so bad. I need this more than the N1.
Yeah.
I never dared to even dream.
These toys are awesome, because I've got the Jedi, I've got Obi-Wan's Jedi Starfighter, I have the Millennium Falcon, and I have Luke's X-Wing. I have Red 5. And I part of me really wants the Razor Crest, but I'm also kind of like, and I will get Obi-Wan's Interceptor as well, because anytime there's an Obi-Wan ship, especially if it's the maroon, if it's the Republic maroon one, even more so, I want it. I have to have it. But they haven't done a V19 yet. They need to do a V19 because like that, man, the V19 never gets love. It never. That's not true. They put out a X-wing miniatures set with Obi-Wan's Jedi Starfighter and 2 V-wings, or not V-wings, 2 V19s, and it's a little bit ridiculous that I haven't bought it, because the V19 is probably like I don't know, it's probably like number 3 of my favorite starfighters in Star Wars. So I should
Really?
starships in Star Wars because it's like the X-wing is number 1. The Delta 7, the first Jedi starfighter, is number 2, and then the V19 is number 3. I love that ship so much. Which again, it's same debut episode as the or is it? Are they both in the same episode as that Republic gunship? Because the V19 was created for Clone Wars, for the Clone Wars micro series.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that first episode ends with the gunships launching, right?
No.
Or is that the beginning of the second episode?
That's the second episode.
Okay. Because the first episode is like the montage of like all of the stuff, and like when Padme gives R2 to Anakin, and then they head off to war, and then it starts with the space battle, right? With him and his Jedi Starfighter. Yeah.
We don't
Fantastic
actually see this gunship until chapter 21, though. When they go to Hypori. Yeah. Because the gunship that they're in crashes. It's like a regular gunship.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's been so long. I guess I watched season 1 of the micro series when that all got added to Disney Plus, but I haven't watched season 2. I don't know. Season 2 is not quite as good, but still cool stuff. But
I don't know. It's got that episode, baby.
It does.
That's that might be my favorite episode, 21.
Yeah. We're so far off track, but I think it's because I think it's because we did it. I mean, I think we did it. I think we.
I have a quick question for you because unfortunately, this is our last time talking Mandalorian this season together.
Yeah,
I will be heading off to Star Wars Celebration next week, so Mike, you are going to be joined by a host of guests that I'm sure are going to be wonderful and do a much better job than me. But while we're together, Mike, what was your favorite moment of season 3 so far?
I mean, I think it's Kelleran.
Yeah.
So far, that is just like, I tweeted it like the best of all possible scenarios, both for the story itself, who Kelleran is in the lore, like because of Jedi Temple Challenge, what that character means, like why he exists in the first place, and then as well the meta narrative of Grogu, possibly like the most cherished character in Star Wars right now, right? Being rescued by the actor who played Jar Jar Binks, who was unfairly roasted in 1999 for just like for just doing the job, right? Yep. And like, again, because of a lack of media literacy, because of the weird scenario, and especially in 99, us not fully understanding, because like really, like if you really think about it, the Phantom Menace is the first wave of the whole like, hey, we're gonna tell a sequel, although it's a prequel. We're gonna continue a story from a beloved franchise 20 years later, right? And so it was the first time that we learned the lesson of, oh crap, if you were 8 when you first saw Star Wars, and it's now been it's 22 years, right? 77 to 99, right? So it's been 22 years, and now you're a 30-year-old man. What you want from Star Wars has changed in that time, but Star Wars itself has not changed in the eyes of George Lucas, who was a man. I mean, like, yes, a young man, but a man when he wrote Star Wars for a child's entertainment, right? Like for it has always been intended for kids, for 8 to 13-year-olds, right? These are fairy tales, modern fairy tales for kids. That's what they were always supposed to be. And Jar Jar showing up is absolutely 100% in line with that. And look, I was 13. I was right at the edge of acceptable. And was I a mature 13? In some ways I was mature, and in other ways very immature. So, and in those immature ways I remain that immature. So I that is also the part of me that still loves Jar Jar Binks. And I think that if more people could have had the perspective of an 8 to 13-year-old when they watch The Phantom Menace, instead of asking Star Wars to be something that it was not. And you have to remember that, like, in the interim, we got Dark Empire, and we got the Thrawn trilogy, and we'd even gotten, at that point, we were starting the New Jedi Order, right? Vector Prime had already happened. So, like, Chewbacca's already dead, you guys. Like
Oh.
that's where we're at. Like, the novels are telling darker, more mature Star Wars stories. They grew up with the audience. They needed to in order to sell, right? But George didn't care about what the novels were doing. George was going to tell the stories that he was going to tell, which are fairy tales for kids. And so, like, Ahmed Best got the short end of that stick, as did Jake Lloyd, right? Like, and it's completely unfair, because I think that, like, I don't think that there is an 8-year-old, 10-year-old, however old Jake Lloyd was at the time, that's gonna live up to that, you know. And George is not. I shouldn't say there isn't. That, you know, I'm sure that there was somebody out there who could have pulled that off. Jake Lloyd was not going to be that guy, because not for his failings, because there are other movies that Jake Lloyd is in where he's perfectly fine. He's a perfectly fine actor as a kid, right? He's quite good in Jingle All the Way, right? Like, he's like against Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad. He does the job exactly as well as he needs to in that movie. But George is not an actor's director, and kids need to be handled a certain way, and George wasn't that guy. And so, you know, that performance comes across as a little bit wooden and a little bit odd, and then it translates into Hayden Christensen's performance as well. I find it's ridiculously, radically consistent, actually, with um with Darth Vader. Like, Darth Vader's performance is also, actually, because it's James Earl Jones, we give it a lot of leeway because his voice is so just buttery, you know, it's just delicious. But the dialogue and the line delivery is actually, like, very, very one note, especially in A New Hope, right? Like, he's like Vader's kind of got two modes in that movie. It's quiet angry and loud angry, and that's it. And even in Empire, it's a lot. We don't get a lot of loud angry in Empire. We get mostly quiet angry. It's not until Return of the Jedi that we start to get some of that actual pathos from Vader, right? And I think we have a hard time remembering that like, it's not really there for those other two movies. Um, but yeah, like, I just like Jake Lloyd and Ahmed Best got short shrift in that deal, and then we're the butt of jokes, and then Red Letter Media comes along and makes it really cool to crap all over other people's hard work, 10 years after the fact, which it's really easy to look at pioneering technology 10 years later and go, they didn't do this right. It's like, yeah, well, that now in a like time period after Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow, but like that hadn't happened yet. These things hadn't happened yet. George was like, I think I can do it. I think I can make a fully digital character. And go back and watch Phantom Menace on Disney Plus, or if you can get like the Blu-rays, like go and watch the Phantom Menace and look at Jar Jar. Really look at Jar Jar and Sebulba. Those characters are 100% believable. That was 1999. There is only one other movie that holds up that has CG that holds up that well, and it's Jurassic Park. And both instances are, do you think we can do this? I don't know. We better pull it off though. Right? Like, because if we don't pull it off, this all breaks.
Yeah, no, that was rough.
And so in both instances, you end up with something that stands the test of time because the care and attention was put into it, as opposed to like later on down the road, other movies would come along and do stuff, and you're like, I don't know if that's aged that well. I'm going to be perfectly honest, and people are probably going to roast me for this one. I don't think that the Lord of the Rings holds up. I don't think that
Really?
Gollum holds up. I think that Gollum looks like a CG character, and I don't think that Jar Jar looks like a CG character in every shot. I think there are shots where he does, for sure, right? And it's like mileage varies across that movie. There are scenes in the Phantom Menace where Jar Jar is just standing in the background and he's just another character, and you're not going like, what is that weird CG character? And then there are scenes there are scenes more often than not. It's been a really long time since I've watched Lord of the Rings, like actually like sat and watched the movies, but like whenever clips pop up or I see like a gif or whatever, it's always like, I'm always like, Gollum, the performance is there. And I think that's the pioneering aspect, is that like the performance capture of Andy Serkis's performance translated into the animation of that character is what everybody keys into. And so you forget that he's a CG character and you look past his shininess and the uncanny valley aspect of that character, because Andy Serkis is Andy Serkis, right? Which, like, I mean, like he there are 3 movies where he plays Caesar in the Planet of the Apes movies. He barely speaks. And I think he should have won an Academy Award. Like, his performance across those 3 movies is, I don't think that there's another actor alive right now that could do what he did in those movies. And I think that that comes across in Gollum as well, right? But Ahmed Best did it first. And Andy Serkis says that, right? And I think there's even like an interview where he almost like apologizes for it, where he's like, like people talk about me as like the guy who pioneered this stuff, and I've been happy to like let them, but Ahmed Best is the guy who did it first, right? Like, this guy, like, I owe everything to him, because we wouldn't have been able to do what we did had they not done what they did on the Phantom Menace, right? And so to have him come back with this character that he helped craft, because when they did Jedi Temple Challenge, he worked with it was the StarWars.com Star Wars show team that put together Jedi Temple Challenge. They came to Ahmed and said, do you want to play this character? And he came back and went, I have some ideas. And they went, awesome, right? Because he's just as big a Star Wars fan as we are. He has his view of the Force that is Keller and Beck's view of the Force. And so to see that character show up in splendid glory, and then to just like crush in the way that he does and save the day, and then to cap it all off with a nod of like a friend of mine has arranged transport, or whatever it is that he says, and then we get there and it's very clearly the Naboo starship from Attack of the Clones that Padme used when she was senator, and now Who's the senator in Revenge of the
Mm-hmm.
Sith? It's Jar Jar,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Jar Jar is the one. Jar Jar and
It's so good.
Kelleran
It's
are
so good.
responsible for Grogu escaping Order 66. And that's
God,
just like
it's so good, man. It's so good.
people have inappropriately thrown around the word redemption, and I don't need to add to that echo chamber of that part of the conversation. I agree with everything that everybody has said about that. The words, there are two things to that. I would say it is not Ahmed Best's redemption, it's his vindication,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's a
Like
good word for it.
that's what it is. And if anybody needs to be redeemed, it's Star Wars fans. And this is our opportunity to redeem ourselves and lift him up and say, holy crap, Ahmed Best is incredible and I want more, right? And so like I really genuinely hope it's not the last that we see of Kelleran and Grogu. And man, I don't think it's too much to hope, to dream, to pray for a scene where Ahmed plays across from himself
Yeah, wouldn't
as
that be
Jar Jar.
sick?
I think we're gonna get it. I think we're gonna get it. Um, and I think like that's a great opportunity to bring Jar Jar back in and to like let's do a performance of Jar Jar with some real and I think it's I mean I think that there are some scenes in Attack of the Clones with Jar Jar, and I think that like the visual, he doesn't get to say anything in Revenge of the Sith, but the visual of Jar Jar at the end of that movie at Padme's funeral is like there's some real pathos there. But I think
Mm,
that we have an opportunity to tell a story that happens immediately after that scene with Kelleran and Jar Jar
yeah.
and Grogu, and because we now need to, now we know who got him out of the temple. Now we need to know what happened that Grogu ends up with pirates on some backwater planet
Yeah.
30 years later, right? Um, so obviously some stuff goes down in between there, but I think I don't know. I hope that we get to see Kelleran as part of the path. Um, that we get some stories with Kelleran and Quinlan and
Oh my
Grogu and
god.
a bunch of that stuff,
Oh my god,
and then to
please.
find out what happens to the path and how that falls apart, because I think that it does.
Oh.
Now, Jedi Survivor comes out in a month, and Jedi Survivor I think is going to tie into the story of the path, because the trailer that we just got has to do, you ask one question and we go for another 20 minutes. You're the worst. Um
Well, last time, so
yeah, we got essentially the plot of Jedi Survivor is that Cal is looking for a new place for the Jedi, where um Jedi will be safe from the Empire,
right.
right? And I listen, maybe this is crazy. Maybe this is exactly where it's all going. I think that by the end of that game you will have established that. I think that there will be a reason why Cal can't stay there, and has to leave, because there's going to be they want to make a third game. They want to make a trilogy of games, right? So
Mm,
I think there will be a reason why. Like, I think that Seer will stay there as like the custodian of this new place, this new Jedi temple, Jedi enclave, whatever you want to call it, and Cal will have to go back out into the galaxy in order to protect it, and in order to throw the Empire off the trail, sort of thing, and deal with the Inquisitors. But I think that what we could end up with is a story eventually that, because I think it'll be in the unknown regions. That's the only way that it works. That's the only thing that's outside the reach of the Empire, right? I and I wouldn't be surprised if Ahsoka and Ezra end up at the end of the path by the end of this Mando stuff. That
mm,
like that somewhere in the galaxy there is actually a whole bunch of Jedi, and maybe they're not Jedi anymore. Maybe there's some they've evolved into something else in terms of like an organization, right? The organization has evolved into something else, something different from the Jedi Order, but that there is somewhere out there the remnants of the Jedi Order, and that Ezra will have found that. And Ahsoka will find him and find that, and it'll connect back to the path. But then at some point the path broke down. Like at some point, and I think that will either happen in Jedi Survivor or in the third Jedi game. And that like that, but there's an opportunity there to fill in some blanks and tell a story with Kelleran and Quinlan and some of these other characters. It's like I don't know why you established that Coran Horn is one of those kids,
Right. Yeah.
if you're not going to do something with that. It's a waste to say that that's Coran Horn. In the Obi-Wan series, right? If you're not going to play that out. So and then all of that can tie into whatever happens with Rey and Finn and the Jedi in the sequel era, which eventually they have to tell those stories. They have to, because I will force them. I will do whatever I have to do.
This is not a request.
No, it's not a request. Kara asks me on a regular basis, like, when are they going to make more movies with Rey? And I'm just like, I don't know, kid. I don't know. She doesn't care about any other Star Wars, really. Like it really doesn't matter to her. She doesn't click with very much of it. She likes Ahsoka. She likes Ahsoka and she likes Rey. And so, like, I'm interested to see if I can get her to watch Ahsoka when that starts.
Has she seen any live action Rosario stuff yet? I don't know.
No, because she hasn't watched The Mandalorian at all.
Okay.
She's watched. I shouldn't say that she hasn't watched any of it, because I'm sure that it's been on in the background while she's been around, but she hasn't like sat down to watch it. It's not really. I don't think that a 6-year-old is gonna really like jam on The Mandalorian. It can be a little bit slow at times, but
well, I just meant more like. So I was just curious what younger kids, if they feel like there's a disconnect between, Ashley cartoon Ahsoka versus Rosario Ahsoka. For us, it's easy, but like to a kid, I'm curious. Does it feel like the same character? Which one do they like more?
Oh, it's even easier for them. Even easier for them, because for Kara, Mickey Mouse in 2D is the same as Mickey Mouse in 3D is the same as Mickey Mouse when she stands next to him at Disneyland. Yeah. Same guy. No difference. So like the current like world of Mickey Mouse animated stuff, right, where like the newest design stuff, that is the same Mickey Mouse that she sees. Like she watches that, and then we'll watch like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and where he's like classic Mickey in 3D, acting like it's a preschool kid show, because it is, with totally different characters, in my opinion. Like from my perspective, I'm like, these are different Mickey Mouses. Like, this is multiverse stuff. And then we go to Disneyland and she stands next to Mickey Mouse to take a picture, and it's like, that's the same guy. It's the same guy. They film him and then he's in the cartoons. That's how that works. We watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit. We know how this works, right? Like, it's like in her world. Listen, when we went to Galaxy's Edge and we rode Rise of Resistance on my birthday last year, Cara and I got on that ride. She's in her Rey costume. She's got her staff. Her middle name is Rey. We are on that ride. You get in the transport, and the transport starts moving, and the screens are on, which are windows, and we're looking out, and there's Mon Cal flying that ship. He's right there. You can see him. You can see out the windows. Poe Dameron's talking to us, and then you get caught in that tractor beam and pulled into that Star Destroyer, and those doors open, and you are in the hangar of a Star Destroyer, just like in the movies, and you look out that hangar and you see outer space and TIE fighters flying by. She genuinely thought that we were in outer space. Like, I'm like no word of a lie. I am not exaggerating. This is not hyperbole. We get in the little transport thing, like the little droid cars, right? And that's going around, and that's a droid. That's a real droid, just like R2-D2. And you know, at the end, when Kylo Ren is like, he's got the lightsaber out and he's in front of you, and he's like, you stop, and he uses the Force on
Mm.
the ride vehicle, and then the ship collapses, right?
Mm.
And you get away. He's doing this. He's using the Force on the thing, and I turn to Cara and I go, use the Force back, like push him, use the Force. And she does it. She puts her hand out, she pushes, and the thing comes down, and the vehicle like immediately like releases and keeps going. And she turns to me and she goes, I did it for real. And I was like, you did, you saved us, you saved us all. And this is the wild thing,
That's
she
so
then
cool.
wrote it again like 15 minutes later, and the same thing happens, and she still comes back and she's like, I did it again, Dad. Like, she 100% believes that. And
That's awesome.
I wish that I could
Yeah.
turn
Suspend.
off whatever
Yeah.
crap is in my brain
Yeah.
that stops me from believing that magic. But for her, like, she will, I hope, always have that memory of that first time she rode Rise of the Resistance and believed for real that we got on a spaceship and we went into outer space. She came home and she told her friends, like, I went to outer space. And they were like, what? She's like, yeah, I went to Star Wars land and I went to outer space and I fought Kylo Ren. And it's like, she did. She did. And I'll go back to what Qui-Gon says, which is your focus determines your reality. And as far as Kara is concerned, that's what happened. So Kara looks at Ahsoka Tano in the cartoon. She looks at the doll that she's got, because she's got the Forces of Destiny doll, the action figures that she's got. I think, do we have the toy box one? No, she has a different. Maybe we do have the toy box one. I don't know. She's got an Ahsoka figure. When we went back in October, we brought them home stuff. We got Cassie a bunch of Droid Depot stuff. Cassie doesn't care about Star Wars either, except for droids. Like, droids are the coolest thing in the world, and she's got her little droid from the Droid Depot. And we got her some accessories for her droid, so that she could change the color of it, and a little, like, the little tool belt, the Droid Depot tool belt. And whenever she gets out her droid, she also has to get out the tool belt and put it on and like get all geared up. She's like, this is my work stuff.
Yeah. I mean, obviously. Come on, Dad.
Obviously. But we got Kara the we got her the Ahsoka Mickey ears, because it's like a pretty perfect, like, little Ahsoka headband for her. Even though it's got the Mickey Mouse ears on the top of it, it doesn't matter. And we got her the Ahsoka costume and the lightsabers, not the nice ones, like the toy one.
Tina bought the nice ones. Tina wanted to dress up as Ahsoka
Yeah.
too, so she's like, I want the
Um,
lightsabers.
yeah. So, like, Halloween nowadays is not just one night for kids. It's like, well, on the Saturday we're gonna go trick or treating, but on Friday we'll go to the mall and do the event at the mall or whatever. So, like, they end up with multiple costumes, because it's like, you can wear the same thing the whole time, or you can wear all these other things. At least our kids, because we're terrible parents, because we're the best parents. Because we just give them everything that they could ever want. So Kara wore that when we went to the mall, when we went to the shopping center and went trick or treating. She wore her Ahsoka costume. She was pretty excited about that. So she
Dope.
loves Ahsoka, but on the flip side, she's never watched anything. She's watched Forces of Destiny. She's watched like most of those, because they're just the little shorts or whatever. But she hasn't watched them in a long time. She was a little kid. She watched those, basically when they were coming out, I think.
Yeah, they're pretty old.
But she just knows who Ahsoka is and thinks that Ahsoka is cool. Like, she doesn't really. She's watched all of the sequel trilogy movies, and she's watched the original trilogy, and we've watched Phantom Menace and half of Attack of the Clones. That's as far as we made it in the prequels, which is fair. This would have been back in 2020, so back when she was like four and a half. So she hasn't quite made it through everything, and she doesn't have the attention span for all of it. But yeah, she doesn't care that much about Star Wars, but she cares about Rey and she cares about Ahsoka. So I'm crossing my fingers that when we get to Ahsoka, that like I'll be able to get her to sit down and watch it, because it'll have Ahsoka, Sabine, and Hera,
Yeah.
right? Like it's got
And maybe
three,
Zeb.
and maybe Zeb. It's got three badass Star Wars ladies right there in it, and so I'm hoping that usually helps her connect when she
Mm.
sees characters that she can see herself in. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But Mando is not her jam. I can tell you already that she's not gonna care if I try to get her to sit and watch the Mandalorian. She likes
That's all
Grogu,
right.
but
Who doesn't?
yeah. That's it. We did it.
We
We
did
did
it.
it, and then we did it again.
We did do it.
We did do it. And you're off to Star Wars Celebration soon.
I'm going.
I'm very jealous, but also you're not gonna actually you'll be at Star Wars Celebration, but you won't really be at Star Wars Celebration because you're gonna be stuck at your table the whole time. So
You know what
for
though?
yeah,
I my favorite thing about Celebration every time is going and hanging out with people that I really like being around, that I don't get to be around often. So that I get to do. That makes it worth it. Also, the trip is going to pay for itself because I'm selling prints and they're doing
yeah,
pretty okay. So
totally.
cool.
So if you are gonna be at Star Wars Celebration Europe, make sure that you head over to the Artist Alley and say hi to Joe.
Yeah, you
And
don't feel like you have to buy anything. Just come say hey.
yeah, yeah, awesome. I'll be back next week. I don't know who the guest is going to be next week. I have a guest lined up for the week after that, but I've got to figure out who's going to be on the next one. Look, if it comes down to it, I'll just make Kyle come on, and then he can just disagree with whatever I have to say about the episode. But I'll just be like, I really liked it, and he'll be like, yeah, I thought that I didn't though. And
But
I'm like, okay,
he
Kyle.
would know the Knights of the Republic reference that we were pulling before.
He would. Yeah. So I guess he's got that going for him. No, we give him a hard time, but yeah. If worst comes to worst, I guess I could just bring Kyle on. But we'll have guests for the rest of the season, and go make sure you check out. Hopefully, you're watching Bad Batch as well, and listening to Rebel Cells. So we just did our season finale episode of that right before we recorded this, and it's a good one. And yeah, and we'll be talking about Star Wars Visions and Young Jedi Adventures on Rebel Cells in the near future. So make sure you're subscribed over there, because those will be coming at some point in May after those things drop. But we'll keep talking about Mando as long as there are new episodes of Mando to talk about. I'm sure that we'll also probably talk about Jedi Survivor after we've had a chance to play it.
Yeah.
Which comes out in a month. So
you and I are doing a perfect 10 in May too, if I recall, right? Or is that
we
you?
are, and it's a secret what it is.
Okay, I will keep my mouth shut.
I've been teasing it, but I will drop a hint, which is that there is a major release in May that Joe and I are both excited about. That is not Star Wars.
What could it be?
So I don't know. Go figure out another thing that Joe is pretty obsessed with.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it doesn't have anything to do with anything important in your life. It's
not Ghostbusters.
It's not Ghostbusters. Although, hey, listen.
I mean,
we got a Ghostbusters movie coming later this year.
mean,
I know we've already done Perfect 10 Ghostbusters, but we could also do Perfect 10 The Real Ghostbusters. So
I'm okay. I'm in.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll get there when the movie's coming out. We can also do Ghostbusters Afterlife, because that movie is a perfect 10 too.
Oh, I adore that film.
Yeah. So I don't know. Listen, you and I could just talk about. We could talk about Ghostbusters 2 as a perfect 10. We can make that movie a perfect 10. I don't need other people to agree with
it already is. It's
exactly.
Like, okay, I almost ruined the perfect 10 we're gonna do. I think Ghostbusters 1 is a better film, but I like Ghostbusters 2 more because that's my Ghostbusters movie. That's the first film I ever saw in a movie theater. I watched it 1,000 times as a child before I ever even saw the first one. Like, Ghostbusters 2 is my Ghostbusters movie, as much as I love Ghostbusters 1. So I would have no problem with that.
there is no end of Ghostbusters Perfect 10 content, because we could also talk about Ghostbusters the video game. We could also talk about the IDW Ghostbusters comic book series, because I think that it is like the first few volumes of that are definitely Perfect 10 material.
Dude,
There's lots of
Extreme Ghostbusters is a perfect 10
Dude,
for me.
Extreme
I love that
Ghostbusters a
show.
perfect 11, baby. Come
I
on.
love that show. It's
Yeah,
just so
exactly.
underrated. I hate it.
So, all that to say, we're not going to talk about Ghostbusters in May, but we
No,
could talk about
we are not.
Ghostbusters forever. That is one thing that Kara is definitely into.
Awesome.
110%.
Awesome.
Ghostbusters and Avatar are like her geeky things. So she's a weird kid. Which is exactly the way I want her. It's by design. It's on purpose. Awesome. Thank you, Joe, for covering as much of Mando as you have been able to cover with me this season. It is a shame that you're going to be busy in Europe, hanging out and doing cool things, eating croissants and baguettes and scones.
Did I tell you during our Norway trip, we're going to Finns? So going to Hoth, baby. We are going to Hoth. I'm very excited.
Well, just be careful, because your tauntaun will freeze before you reach the first marker.
I will see you in hell. Oh, maybe Excellent. I'll see if Carl and Jason are in the Wampa's lair over
there. Excellent. On that note, thank you everybody for listening. I'll be back next week. Joe will be in Europe at Star Wars Celebration, so go see him. Give him a big old kiss on the face for me. Yeah, we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to Thunderquack Force Perspectives. Our opening theme is composed for us by Christy Carew. Follow Force Perspectives on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ForcePOV, and join us on Discord at thunderquack.com/Discord. Support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/thunderquack to get early access to episodes, leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast service, or buy merch at store.thunderquack.com. Force Perspectives is a part of the Thunderquack Podcast Network.